As Trump tramples long-held laws and norms that have been stanchions of our American democracy, well, that effort to redefine the power of the president, it's being challenged each and every day. In fact, in our breaking story today, a Trump-appointed judge offered a stunning and important ruling on that pesky part of the Alien Enemies Act, where a president can invoke the act only in times of war. Well, before we dig into today's great story out of the Southern District of Texas, let's brush up a little bit on the important details of the Alien Enemies Act from those smart folks over there at the Brennan Center for Justice.
President Trump has said he plans to use the Alien Enemies Act to detain and deport millions of immigrants. It's a 200-year-old wartime law that's only been used 3 times, and always during a declared war. The Alien Enemies Act was last used during World War II to imprison tens of thousands of innocent people of Japanese, German, and Italian ancestry who hadn't obtained U.S. citizenship. No president since then has even considered reviving the Alien Enemies Act. Until now.
I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798.
President Trump has said he'd proclaim a so-called migrant invasion. This could unlock the Alien Enemies Act's vast detention and deportation powers, allowing him to round up anyone from those countries who hasn't obtained U.S. citizenship, even if they're here legally, even if they have a green card. He could deport them without hearings, appeals, or any opportunity to defend themselves. It's impossible to instantly deport that many people. They would likely be held in detention camps for days, weeks, or longer. Targeted immigrants might have children born in this country who are U.S. citizens. These parents would face a terrible choice. They could have their U.S. citizen children placed in detention camps, waiting to be deported to a country they'd never known. Or their family could be ripped apart. But none of this is inevitable. What Trump is planning to do is not just contrary to American values, it's illegal. The Alien Enemies Act can only be used in wartime. And discriminating against immigrants based on their place of birth or ancestry violates constitutional rights. Courts have the power to stop this, and so does Congress. Let's hope they do their jobs and stand up for the Constitution and the rule of law.
Now, keep in mind, since Trump invoked this decree, the fear and the pain that has resulted, it's substantial. Now, we can only hope, based upon our featured story coming up next, well, that we're taking an important step to backtracking this terrible and inhuman example of governance.
As of now, we're not at war. So just from the get-go, we're in uncharted territory. I think one of our biggest fears, right, is the possibility of the federal government using this law to detain and deport immigrants.
City immigration advocates we spoke with described a fear each day that's outweighed only by the fear of what tomorrow may bring.
Right now, it's suspecting what is next and trying to play defense.
What frightens me the most in this moment about the act and everything else is the way in which our government is supposed to have checks and balances.
Trump's planned use of the Alien Enemies Act is expected to face federal lawsuits. But unless the courts grant relief while considering those, use of the act may continue through the legal process.
What would happen to anybody who happens to be detained, deported during that time while it's being fought in court?
Just waiting for courts to intervene in and of itself is going to cause irreparable harm.
Well, a judge has intervened today, and it's our featured story, as reported earlier by CNN. A Donald Trump-appointed federal judge in Texas ruled that the president unlawfully invoked the Alien Enemies Act and blocked the administration from quickly deporting some alleged members of a Venezuelan gang. U.S. District Judge Fernando Rodriguez of the Southern District of Texas said Trump had unlawfully invoked the sweeping 18th century wartime authority to speed up some deportations. His decision means Trump cannot rely on the law to detain or deport any alleged members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua within his district. The ruling is a significant blow to Trump's decision in March to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, which has faced numerous legal challenges and has been halted by several courts. But Rodriguez's ruling is the first to conclude that the president exceeded his authority by relying on a law that was intended to be used during times when the U.S. is at war. The Trump administration, Rodriguez wrote, does not possess the lawful authority under the AEA and based on the proclamation to detain Venezuelan aliens, transfer them within the United States, or remove them from the country. Allowing the president to unilaterally define the conditions when he may invoke the AEA and then summarily declare that those conditions exist would remove all limitations to the executive branch's authority under the AEA and would strip the courts of their traditional role of interpreting congressional statutes to determine whether a government official has exceeded the statute's scope, the judge wrote. The law does not support such a position, although Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act has been litigated in multiple courts nationwide, including the Supreme Court. Rodriguez is the first judge to have reached a final decision on the merits. The importance of this ruling cannot be overstated, said Lee Gellerant, an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union who helped bring the legal challenge. This is the first court to squarely rule on the fundamental question of whether a wartime authority can be used during peacetime, and properly concluded it cannot, Gellerant said. The Venezuelans suing had narrowly avoided being sent to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act when 2 flights took migrants to the country's notorious CCOT prison in March. They were continuing to sue, so the administration wouldn't try again to deport them under the Alien Enemies Act. The judge says other immigration laws governing deportations could still be used, and the men are still being held in a facility in South Texas. Kind of puts me in mind of a great older movie to check out. It's called Snow Falling on Cedars. Executive producer Lloyd A. Silverman. It's informed, the film, by the division and prejudice evidenced by the Japanese internment camps. That's the last time the Alien Enemies Act was used. So let's close on Max von Sydow's impassioned speech about prejudice during the pivotal trial scene from this now sad but timely film.
And there's reason in his uncertainty. Why? Well, we sent him and his wife and thousands of Americans to concentration camps. They lost their homes, their belongings, everything. Should we now be unforgiving of his mistrust? And I feel like a traveler descended from Mars, astounded by what I see here. The same human frailty passed on from generation to generation. We hate one another. We are the victims of irrational fears of prejudice. You might think that this is a small trial in a small place. Well, it isn't. Every once in a while, somewhere in the world, humanity goes on trial.